Stephanie White was pissed. Stephanie White was pissed right there, right? So from that point on, now we're gonna go here. Now we're gonna go here, guys. You see right here, Caitlin Clark is right here. She's been subbed out of the game. That's why she's standing. The players that are sitting are the ones in the game. This means Stephanie White snatched her out of the game after one turnover. After that,
watch that sequence carefully. Caitlin Clark just drained a three-pointer. She had 2 assists the possession before. She's playing well, the game is tied at 67, and then one turnover happens. One single mistake. And suddenly she's yanked from the game and disappears for the rest of the night.
And then we never see her. Watch this. I don't think she was hurt like that. I think her ass got benched and pulled by Stephanie White because it's nonsense going on. Pay attention.
Fever. Well, the consistency that Phoenix is looking for, but let's look at this. Take a look at Caitlin Clark. How deep
that is Caitlin Clark hitting the three.
She is when she comes off that screen.
That's Caitlin Clark hitting the three. Now, this is that you just saw.
Let's establish the timeline with precision because the details matter here. This clip everyone's pointing to where Clark briefly touches her back. That happened in the second quarter with approximately 6 minutes remaining. After that moment, she played 4 more minutes in that same quarter. She scored. She looked fine. No limping, no visible discomfort, no substitution for injury. Then the third quarter starts, and she's back on the floor, playing her normal game. She hits a deep three-pointer. She's facilitating the offense. Everything looks completely normal until that turnover sequence we just watched. Now here's where the timeline gets interesting. From the moment that back touch happened to when she actually left the game, nearly 12 minutes of game time elapsed. 12 minutes! She played through all of it without any visible issues. That's not how back injuries work in professional sports. When a player has a legitimate back problem that forces them out of a game, they don't play 12 more minutes at full intensity first. They don't hit contested three-pointers. They don't make sharp cuts in defensive rotations. Something doesn't add up.
Clark, 5 seconds. Defended by Held.
Okay, the Caitlin Clark turns it over right there. Now watch Caitlin Clark not sprint back, and Stephanie White is gonna be pissed.
With the steal, up the floor.
Here comes
Thomas,
Alyssa.
up the floor, Held now. Lays it
Look
up
at
and in.
Stephanie White.
White has seen enough. We are tied at 67.
Stephanie White was pissed. Hold on, let me play it for you one more time.
5 seconds.
Okay, here comes the Caitlin Clark turnover, guys. I'm gonna add myself. Just for a second.
Defended by Held.
Pay attention to Stephanie White's body language in this sequence. The moment that turnover happens and Clark doesn't sprint back on defense, White explodes off the bench. She's not calmly calling a timeout to make a substitution. She's not signaling to the training staff that a player is hurt. She's visibly angry. Watch her face. That's frustration, not concern. That's a coach who just watched her star player make a mental mistake in a tied game, and she's had enough. This is actually part of a pattern that's been developing all season between White and Clark. White has been quick to pull Clark for mistakes, sometimes after just one turnover or one defensive lapse. It's a coaching style that works with some players, but with a competitor like Caitlin Clark, someone who's used to playing through mistakes and working things out on the floor, that approach can create tension, and we've seen hints of that tension in previous games. This isn't the first time Clark has been pulled quickly after a mistake, but this might be the first time the situation escalated to the point where Clark decided she was done for the night.
Stephanie White pulled her. After that one mistake, Stephanie White pulled her. Now this is where it gets fishy. Caitlin Clark is just gonna leave. Who's walking? Like, where's the training staff? Where's the staff at? Where's the trainers at? If she's hurt, now y'all tell me in an NBA game when a player is hurt, what player just walks to the locker room with no trainers? Nobody asks. No trainers in the huddle is asking what's going on with her back. Nobody's saying no.
This is the moment that exposes the entire narrative. Caitlin Clark is standing in the team huddle during the timeout. She's not sitting on the bench being examined by medical staff. She's not wincing in pain or stretching out her back. She's standing with her teammates, and then she just walks away. No trainer accompanies her. No medical personnel follow her to the locker room. The broadcast team has no information about an injury. The coaching staff isn't signaling for medical attention. She simply leaves. Think about what we see in every other professional basketball game when a player exits with an injury. In the NBA, if a player has to leave the game for any medical reason, there's an immediate response. Training staff is notified. Someone from the medical team walks with the player. The broadcast is informed so they can update viewers. There's a visible protocol that gets followed every single time. None of that happened here. The Indiana Fever have a full medical staff. They have protocols for injury situations. And yet, Caitlin Clark, their franchise player and the biggest star in women's basketball, just walks to the locker room alone while her team is in a timeout huddle for a tied game.
Walking by himself? No! This is weird. This looks crazy. This is fishy. That's fishy, bro. Where is the training staff if she's hurt?
Not going to return.
Where's the training staff? There's no training.
Third quarter.
If she's standing here in the huddle, if her back is hurt, wouldn't there be a trainer somewhere checking on her? Wouldn't she be sitting at the end of the bench getting checked on? Nothing. She's in the huddle, realize, yo, I got yanked out, I'm pissed. And she just, I'm out of here. I'm out of here, bro.
Here's what makes this situation even more suspicious. The broadcast had no information for over 30 minutes. 30 minutes in modern sports media. When a star player leaves a game, information flows immediately. Teams have PR staff whose job is to communicate injury updates to broadcasters. The league wants fans to know what's happening with their biggest stars. But in this case, there was complete silence. The announcers had nothing to report. They couldn't tell viewers what happened, when it happened, or what the diagnosis was. That's not how injury situations are handled in professional sports. Compare this to any other high-profile injury this season in the WNBA. When players go down with legitimate injuries, the information comes quickly. The team announces it. The broadcast reports it. Fans know what's happening. But here, there was a communication blackout that lasted half an hour. That suggests the team itself didn't have a clear explanation for why their star player had left the game. And that points to something other than a straightforward injury situation.
I'm not buying it. I think this Stephanie White thing is weird, man. I think it's very weird what went down. I think it's fishy. I think it's shaky. Like, I'm not buying that, bro. I'm not buying that. I'm really not. I think something was going on with her and Stephanie White, and she's pissed that Stephanie White benched her, and I don't blame her. I don't blame her. People are saying Clark mysteriously exited the game. Somebody needs to explain. Listen, something's fishy, man.
Let's talk about the relationship between Caitlin Clark and Stephanie White, because that context is crucial for understanding what might have happened here. When White was hired as head coach of the Indiana Fever, there was excitement about bringing in someone with WNBA championship experience. White won a title as a player, she's been a head coach before, and she has deep connections to Indiana basketball. On paper, it looked like a great fit, but coaching Caitlin Clark presents unique challenges. Clark is not just the franchise player, she's the face of the entire league right now. She's bringing unprecedented attention and revenue to the WNBA. She's selling out arenas on the road. She's driving television ratings to record levels. And she's a player who's used to having significant autonomy on the court. At Iowa, she had the freedom to play her game, to take risks, to work through mistakes without being yanked immediately. Stephanie White's coaching style is more structured and disciplined. She wants players to execute within the system. She's quick to correct mistakes with substitutions. She holds everyone accountable to the same standard regardless of star power. In theory, that's admirable coaching. But when you're dealing with a generational talent who thrives on freedom and confidence, that approach can backfire, and we might be seeing that tension play out in real time.
Let's get into the footage. Now, in this footage, what do we have? You're gonna see, right here, you're gonna see Caitlin Clark, she makes a three. Mind you, that video of Caitlin Clark grabbing her back, that was in the second quarter with like 6 minutes left. She played 4 minutes after that, seemed fine. She scored after that. She played fine in the second quarter after that. In the third quarter, she had a couple assists. She hit a bomb of a three you're about to see. Watch this sequence when Stephanie White snaps on Caitlin Clark and yanks her out the game.
The creator of this analysis is picking up on something that a lot of people are missing. The official story is a back injury. That's what the team eventually reported. But when you watch the actual sequence of events, when you note the absence of medical protocol, when you see the coach's angry reaction and the immediate benching, a different story emerges. This looks like a player who was frustrated with being pulled from a tied game after one mistake, and who decided she was done playing that night. Now, does Caitlin Clark actually have some back soreness? Probably. Every basketball player deals with some level of physical discomfort during the season. The question is whether that back issue was severe enough to force her out of the game, or whether it became a convenient explanation after a confrontation with the coaching staff. And the evidence suggests the latter. The timing is too convenient, the lack of medical protocol is too glaring, the communication breakdown is too suspicious. Here's what this situation reveals about the current state of the Indiana Fever and the challenges they're facing as an organization. They have the biggest star in women's basketball, a player who is single-handedly changing the financial landscape of the WNBA. Caitlin Clark's presence has increased franchise valuations across the league. She's brought corporate sponsors who never paid attention to women's basketball before. She's created a media phenomenon that extends far beyond traditional WNBA audiences. The economic impact of Caitlin Clark cannot be overstated, but having that level of star power also creates organizational pressure that most WNBA teams have never had to navigate. The Fever went from being a struggling franchise with low attendance and minimal media coverage to being the center of the basketball world almost overnight. That's a massive adjustment for everyone in the organization, from ownership to coaching staff to support personnel, and it's clear they're still figuring out how to manage it. Stephanie White is trying to establish a culture and a system. She's trying to build a team that can compete for championships, not just rely on one player's individual brilliance. That's the right long-term approach. But in the short term, it means there will be moments of friction with a player like Caitlin Clark, who is used to being the focal point and having the freedom to play through mistakes. This tension isn't necessarily bad for the team's development, but it does create situations like what we saw in this game, where a minor conflict can escalate into something bigger. The other factor here is the media scrutiny. Every single thing that happens with Caitlin Clark becomes a story. Every substitution gets analyzed. Every interaction with coaches gets dissected. That level of attention makes it harder for the team to handle internal issues privately. When Clark gets pulled from a game and doesn't return, it immediately becomes a national conversation. The team feels pressure to provide an explanation, even if the real explanation is just a disagreement between player and coach that needs to be worked out internally. What makes this particular situation so problematic is the way it was handled. If this was genuinely just a back injury, the team should have followed standard medical protocol. Trainers should have been visible. The broadcast should have been informed immediately. Clark should have been examined on the bench before leaving for the locker room. None of that happened, which suggests the team was caught off guard by Clark's departure and had to come up with an explanation after the fact. If this was a conflict between player and coach, that's actually not that unusual in professional sports. Players and coaches disagree all the time. Star players get frustrated when they're pulled from games. Coaches get angry when players don't execute. These things happen, and they can be worked through with good communication. But the problem here is that instead of acknowledging the real issue, the team appeared to create a medical explanation that doesn't hold up under scrutiny. And that's where trust starts to break down, not just between player and coach, but between the organization and the fans who are paying attention. Look at the broader context of how the Indiana Fever have managed Caitlin Clark's workload and minutes this season. There have been multiple games where her substitution patterns seemed questionable, times when she was pulled during crucial moments, times when she sat longer than expected, and each time there's been speculation about whether it's part of a planned rotation or whether there's tension between Clark and the coaching staff. This latest incident just adds fuel to that fire. The comparison to how other WNBA teams manage their star players is instructive. Look at how the Las Vegas Aces handle Aja Wilson, or how the New York Liberty manage Breanna Stewart. Those teams have established clear communication between their stars and their coaching staffs. There's mutual respect and understanding about roles, minutes, and decision-making. You don't see these kinds of public conflicts because the organizations have figured out how to navigate the relationship between star power and team structure. The Indiana Fever are still learning that balance. They're a young organization in terms of their current iteration, with new ownership, a new coach, and a rookie superstar who's bigger than anyone expected. Growing pains are inevitable, but this situation highlights the need for better communication and clearer protocols. When something happens with your franchise player, you need to have a plan for how to handle it that maintains credibility with your fan base. What happens next is going to be crucial for the Fever's season and for Caitlin Clark's relationship with Stephanie White. If this was indeed a conflict that got covered up with an injury report, they need to address it internally and move forward. If there are legitimate concerns about Clark's back, they need to be transparent about the injury and the recovery timeline. Either way, the organization needs to rebuild trust with fans who are now questioning everything they're told about Clark's status. The reality is that Caitlin Clark holds significant leverage in this situation. She's not just another player who can be managed through traditional coaching methods. She's the reason the Fever's franchise value has skyrocketed. She's the reason games are selling out. She's the reason national media covers this team. If there's a genuine conflict between her and the coaching staff, the organization has to find a way to resolve it that keeps everyone moving in the same direction. Because losing Caitlin Clark, either through trade demands or through a deteriorating relationship that affects her performance, would be catastrophic for this franchise. At the same time, Stephanie White deserves the authority to coach her team without constant second guessing. She was hired to build a winning culture, and that requires holding players accountable, even star players. The challenge is finding the right balance between accountability and autonomy, between structure and freedom. That's the art of coaching at the highest level, and it's especially difficult when you're coaching someone with Caitlin Clark's unique combination of talent and star power. So where does this leave us? We have a situation that was officially reported as a back injury, but looks an awful lot like a player-coach conflict that escalated during a game. We have a franchise trying to manage unprecedented attention and pressure. We have a coach trying to establish her system and authority. And we have a superstar player who's still adjusting to the professional game while carrying the weight of an entire league's resurgence on her shoulders. Something's gotta give. Either the Fever figure out how to navigate these tensions and create a functional working relationship between all parties, or we're going to see more incidents like this as the season progresses. The question isn't whether Caitlin Clark's back was sore that night. The question is whether this organization can build the trust and communication necessary to handle conflicts without creating public spectacles that undermine everyone involved, because right now that trust looks pretty shaky. And in professional sports, once trust breaks down between a star player and the coaching staff, it's very difficult to rebuild. The Fever better figure this out quickly, because the stakes are too high and the spotlight is too bright for these kinds of situations to keep happening.